Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the District 7 Budget Town Hall. I'm Budget Officer Chris Trumbauer, and we'll very quickly get on to some presentations, but I wanted to remind everyone how this is going to work today. First, we're going to have some brief welcoming remarks from the County Executive, and then we'll have opening remarks from Councilwoman Hare. Then the County Executive will walk us through a brief PowerPoint presentation, and we'll get to the fun part, which is public comment. And then we'll have closing remarks from both of our leaders. So with that, it's my privilege to turn it over to the County Executive, Stuart Pittman.
All right, thanks, Chris. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is the first year that we've done these virtually. We were at Southern High last 2 years, and it's a lot more fun. I hope we'll be able to do that next year. I'm sure we will be able to do that next year unless something really goes wrong in this pandemic, which we're not going to allow to happen. So I'm not going to say much now. I'm going to turn it over to your Councilwoman Hare, and then I'll come back to Chris and myself, who will do the slide presentation. And then most of what we're here for is to listen to you and hear what your priorities are and for the budget. But I want to recognize some folks who are here with us. I believe Delegate Sid Saab is with us tonight, as well as Michelle Corkadell from the Board of Education, and a fellow District 7 resident, as am I. So this is, don't tell anybody else, but this is my favorite district because I live in it. We also have our Chief of Staff, Dr. Kay Bodgester-Brown, with us, the Director of Public Works, Chris Phipps, Director of Rec and Parks, Rick Anthony, Department of Aging and Disabilities Director, Carissa Gowan, and from Transportation within Public Works, we have Brian Ulrich, and I'm also joined by your Community Engagement Constituent Service Representative, Vincent Molden. So I will, let's hear from our District 7 County Councilwoman, Jessica Hare.
Good evening. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, County Executive Pittman, for hosting this. I wish I could see everyone's lovely faces right now, but I can see that we're already at 80 attendees, and literally as I'm talking, the number keeps clicking up. So this is really exciting. I hope we're going to hear from all of you this evening. I will say the same thing I said the last couple of years. I'm here to hear what you want, what you don't want, how much of your money that you want us to spend, because it is your money. And I take that charge very seriously every year when we go through the budget. We do a deep dive line item by line item for what the county executive proposes. And I am always taking copious notes from all of you and listening very carefully to the things that you think are worthwhile and the things that you may think are not worthwhile. So I'm looking forward to hearing the county executive's presentation this evening. This will be the first time that I'm hearing it as well. I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you and following up with all of you as we go through this year's budget presentation.
Great. Okay, so I think I'm going to run through the first couple slides here and then turn it over to the county executive. So what you're seeing on your screen now is our budget timeline. And the important thing to take home here, I think, is that budget starts all the way back in September. Shortly after we pass the previous year's budget, we start on the next budget. So that begins with our capital budget and program, which we are still working on now. We're hoping to finish up our submission to the Planning Advisory Board for our initial budget recommendations very shortly. And then we move on to the operating budget. So just earlier this week, departments submitted their proposals to the budget office, and we're reviewing those and crunching all those numbers so that we can get everything together in time to introduce the county executive's budget on April 30th this year. And the county council will have 45 days to deliberate. They're required by charter to pass the budget by June 15th. And that's what we're all planning to do. So you can see by the circle there that we're still kind of in the beginning to middle of the process. And that's what's important about these budget town halls, is we want to hear from the public while there's still time for us to influence what gets put in the county executive's proposed budget. So we can move to the next slide. Okay, so this is our general fund revenue broken up into various categories. This is where the county revenue comes from. So you can see $1.7 billion with a B. That's a fairly large amount of money there, and it's broken up by the various funding sources. The biggest one on the right is property taxes. This is our most robust form of revenue every year. The little green arrow next to that number means that we got more than we did the previous year, which is generally a healthy thing. The next thing down is our local income tax. That's at 589 million. Again, a little bit more than we got last year, which is actually a pleasant surprise, considering we had revised our revenue estimates down when the pandemic hit. But because of the Federal CARES Act and other assistance programs, that's done a great job of buoying personal income for many people. There are still, we know, some families, especially at the lower end of the economic scale, that are suffering, and that's where we've concentrated most of our assistance programs too. Next down is the recordation and transfer tax. This is the third largest source of revenue. We've got it marked down a little bit from last year, but the way the housing market is sustained right now, it's still doing really well, and we may be able to revise that up slightly. And then following that, you get a bunch of other things like interfund reimbursement, which is how different funds pay each other back when they're used. And then local sales tax. This is kind of an obscure one that comes largely from parking lots around the airport. And then licensing and permits is pretty self-explanatory. And then we do get a little bit of investment income based on our investments. So we'll move to the next slide and we'll show you where the money goes. So you'll see that the number at the top left, $1.7 billion, is the exact same as the previous slide. That's because we need to submit a balanced budget, and we did last year. But this is where the money goes. More than half of it goes over to our friends at the Board of Education to make sure that we have one of the finest school districts in the land. And then our next biggest category is public safety. So that's police, fire, detention, and other agencies like that. That's $333 million. And then from there, it gets broken up into a couple other categories. Debt service is that's basically what we pay for our capital improvement projects. That's the interest we pay on our bonds. And then you see some of our component units down at the bottom: community college, library, and judiciary. They all have separate line items as well. And you can find all of this information on our budget tool, which is aacounty.org/yourbudget. So this is a little bit more detail on our Board of Education funding, since it's the largest component of where we spend our revenue. And the direct county funding to the Board of Ed is about $750 million. Then we have several other things that we consider under the Board of Ed umbrella. So debt service on their capital projects to pay off those bonds. And we have our school health officers, and we have school safety, which includes police and crossing guards. So we add all of those up and it gets that $857 million. And you can see on the box on the right, that's more than half of our total over budget. So 51% of county budget goes to Board of Education, and the other 49% funds everything else that everyone has grown accustomed to. So that's a real quick briefing, and now I'll turn it back over to County Exec so he can walk through some of the highlights from the current year budget.
Thanks, Chris. And for those of you who would like to see these slides and dig a little bit deeper, if you go to aacounty.org/yourbudget, you'll be able to find them, as well as the budget tool with which you can create your own budget. You can add and subtract. And if you add things to the budget, it will ask you where you want the money to come from. And that's what we would like you to be able to tell us tonight as well. But we know nobody ever does that. They just tell us what to spend the money on, and then we have to figure out where it comes from. And that's understandable. That's always how it works. So I am going to jump in to a few categories and then get a little bit into the revenue projections as well. So in FY21, it was a leaner year. We projected $40 million less in revenue as a result of COVID. There was a lot of conversation about whether that was too conservative or too optimistic. And it turned out that we were actually pretty conservative, and things came out a little bit better than that. We'll get into that in a minute. But we were able to continue the progress that we started on public safety. We needed to be able to get both our police and fire departments closer to the level that the national accrediting bodies say that we should be at. And we made a lot of progress on police in the first year. We were under 700 officers and we needed to get up to about 800 and we got close to it. Fire, we got a federal grant, SAFER grant, to help us increase the number of firefighters. Actually helps with your homeowner's insurance if the fire department is rated as meeting standards. So that's a good thing. But the pay for our police and firefighters was less than neighboring jurisdictions, and it was hurting us with recruitment. So gave them a pretty good pay package that this last year, and that cost all of us. But we think that both for morale and just where our values lie, that we really need to support our first responders, and we are. So the next slide shows in education, it was a little bit leaner year than the one before that because of our revenue projections. We were not able to reduce class sizes the way we had the year before, but we were able to keep up with 96 new classroom teachers just to keep up with the growth in our population. We have to hire new teachers. But then we focused on special ed and behavioral health specialists, added 76 and 12 in those two categories to be able to fill a gap that was pretty urgent for us. So next slide. On the environment, this is just some of the work, just a few items. Additional funding for the park renovation fund. This is in addition to the capital improvements for rec and parks to keep our parks up to a standard that our residents deserve. The Land Use Navigator is an online system so that when development projects are applied for, they go into a system where residents will be able to, it's still in the works, follow the progress, the applications, the points where they can intervene, look at the applications in a way that residents can have a greater voice in the decisions that are made. So we're looking forward to having that done in the next year or two. It's gradually going to come online, but it's been a big investment. And then impact fees and fiscal impact of development. It's always frustrated me that our impact fees were set years ago, 10 years ago, much lower than was recommended. So we've missed out on a lot of funds that could have been used, particularly on transportation and roads, because the county council at the time made that decision. And so we're doing a new study to look at our impact fees to see if we should increase them, which I've said that I want to, so that more of the cost of development is paid by the developers up front and less is put on the backs of the taxpayers to subsidize that development. And then the fiscal impact of development study is a thing that is done periodically. We're doing it again to look at what kinds of development actually pay for themselves and don't, and how we should be doing our taxes and our impact fees to be able to accommodate the costs of development. So that will drive our policy going forward. On infrastructure, a couple new fire stations. A big deal is that you may remember that we had about a $2 billion backlog in infrastructure projects that hadn't been funded. And a lot of that was transportation. We did a 0.1% increase in the income tax to create a thing called the Permanent Public Improvements Fund. And a bunch of that is going into Route 2 and Route 3 corridor improvements. And those, as you know, are state roads that the state should be covering the cost of, but the failing intersections on those roads, if you live in Crofton, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And there's been plans redone and redone for way too long without any actual improvements. So we, by putting up this money as a carrot for SHA, we've gotten them to the table, and we are very close to signing an agreement. They've done a study. We'll be doing some town halls on both corridors, so look forward to that in the Route 3 corridor about what that study proposes, what improvements should be funded, and the state is ready to put us up to the top of their list to be able to make improvements on those intersections and get the traffic moving. Rural Transportation Center, Police Training Center is right here in Davidsonville. And we're keeping up on our school construction plan to make sure that our schools are up to the standard that our kids need. In District 7, there's a list here. I won't go through everything. I'm sure there'll be some discussion as we hear from people about some of these projects. Some are close to done or done. Others are still in the works. But we try to keep track by district of our capital improvements projects to make sure that everybody is getting their fair share. So next slide. So the fact that we were pretty conservative last year in our projections and responsible in our budgeting is a good thing. We will have a fund balance, the third bullet there, because this year didn't turn out to be quite as bad as some projected in terms of the impact of COVID. We'll talk about who got impacted by that in a minute, but so we will be okay. It's going to be a fairly normal year. The incremental recurring revenue is the big number that we look at and we eagerly await each year at budget time. When there's an increase just because people's incomes increase and property values increased and some new development as well, new tax revenue coming to the county without any increase in the tax rates, but just overall increase in revenue. And this year we expect it to be in the $60 to $80 million range. And we'll talk about what that pays for in a minute. So FY21, projections for next year's budget are better than we thought they were going to be. And it was greatly aided by $100 million in CARES Act federal funds that helped us during the pandemic, primarily for programs for businesses and people who had been impacted by the pandemic and public health initiatives. So next slide is expenditures. With that extra $60 to $80 million, we have to do certain things that are over last year, including debt service increase of about $10 million, benefits for employees, negotiated pay increases. And then if we have the money, we can do things like pay packages for non-represented employees and others, additional funding for our schools, community college, undoing our hiring freeze, health and human service programs, and basically anything that our departments bring to us in their supplemental budget requests. And those are the things that departments believe will improve services to residents. And we look at those, to be honest, most don't get funded, but some do. And a lot of that depends on how much discretionary spending we have, revenue we have. So next slide. Our property taxes, Chris talked about the percentage of our budget comes from property taxes, but our rate is currently at 93.4 cents per $100 of assessed value, which is the 7th lowest in Maryland. We're proud that our tax rates are still closer to the rural counties than the central Maryland, bigger counties that have more services and higher rates. Next slide. And the income tax is similar, that we are at 2.81%. There are only 3 counties lower than us, but half the counties in Maryland are at the state maximum, which is 3.2. All of the other large central Maryland counties are at the state maximum. So we're proud to be lower than others. The impact of this, of COVID, has been very different than other recessions. You can see these charts from the last 3 recessions and then the coronavirus economy. And what these lines are is job loss, and job loss for different wage categories. And the striking one is the purple line at the lower right corner, where the bottom wage earners, the bottom quarter of wage earners, were 8 times more likely to lose their jobs than higher wage earners during this pandemic. So it had a disparate impact. Next slide. So there's a proposal in the General Assembly that I support, and that was before them last year. It passed the House and did not pass the Senate because they ran out of time. We think the prospects are good, but the basic idea is to go back to where we were before 1999. Local income taxes were progressive, so higher income people paid a higher rate than lower income people. And because we were piggybacked on the state progressive rates. And now we're at a flat rate. And we believe that particularly because of this pandemic, with the folks at the top generally doing better and folks at the bottom doing not as well, that we should have the authority at the local level to have brackets so that higher income folks pay higher. It's particularly most likely to affect income above $500,000 a year. So if you make $700,000, the top 200,000 would be taxed at a slightly higher rate if we get this through. And our hope is that we can lower taxes. That's about 1.4% of our population. Our hope is that we can lower taxes by doing that on the other 98.6% and maybe have a little left over to fund some programs. Next slide. Real quick, to engage with government or to complain about things that need to get fixed, go to 311, click fix, and you can report those. We also have Open Arundel, which is a brand new portal run by our new Arundel stat team of 2 that does performance metrics for the departments of county government so that you can monitor the way we monitor as we're budgeting, whether or not they're achieving their goals. And then the online budget tool, which is I talked about already. So next slide. This is just the homepage of the county website, and the report a concern that you see there at the bottom of those 3 is the 311. Next slide. And this is just a chart from Arundel Stat. It's an example of how we monitor all sorts of government performance metrics, but this is for click fix, the complaints that go in, and you can see from 18, 19, and 20, fairly new program. It is a new program. So the numbers have been increasing, or maybe there are just more complaints. I don't know. I like to think it's because people are more engaged. 19,000 in a year, and they get sent out to the different departments, and we monitor whether those departments are responding and fixing those problems by department. So everybody's under a lot of pressure to deliver for you. Next slide. And this is from Open Arundel. Open Performance in the upper right is the one where it's organized by department. But there's a lot of work going into, particularly the one that I'm excited about is the maps and GIS apps, where more and more information from the county data is going to go into mapping, so you can really explore what's going on in your community in terms of services. Next slide. This is the budget tool. You can explore that. It's like a video game. You can play with it. Next slide. That's pretty much the last one. So go to aacounty.org/yourbudget if you want to dig in deeper. And now I want to get on to the part that we really care about. I'll be taking notes. Councilwoman Hare, I'm sure, will be taking notes. And at the end, if you stick around, we will both respond to what we've heard. We won't be able to respond to it's not a Q&A. It's more you telling us what you think. But we'll speak up at the end. And I'm going to turn it back over to Vincent Molden, I think, who is going to manage everybody and keep us organized.
Yes, thank you, County Executive Pittman. Once again, I'm Vincent Molden. I'm the Community Engagement Officer for Annapolis and South County. And now we're going to get to, like County Executive Pittman said, the best part of the night, the public testimony section. We're all excited to hear what you think should take priority in the next fiscal year's budget. So if you're participating via Zoom, in order to give a public testimony, you're going to click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. Once you click that button, we'll call your name, and then we will allow you to speak. And there's a little bit of a delay between when we click that button and when you'll have the ability to unmute yourself. So we'll give you a couple seconds to do that. And then once you unmute yourself and you begin to speak, you'll have 2 minutes to talk. At the end of that 2 minutes, if you're not finished, we're going to ask you to wrap up your thoughts so we can get your complete thought, but also move on to the next participant. So we're going to start off with Stephen Sutton, Laura Jarvis, and Bernard Nolan. But first, we're going to start off with Stephen. Stephen, you have been given the ability to unmute yourself. Please start when you get ready.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Steve Sutton. I live on Salford Drive in Crofton, and I'm a homeowner in the 62-home Crofton Colony community on Underwood Road and a member of its HOA Board of Directors. I speak to you tonight on the issue of stormwater management, the need for more resources, and more global thinking about the impact of stormwater runoff. Crofton Colony sits on wooded, low-lying land containing wetlands and at least 3 creeks. Prior to the development of Crofton High School and the Ridings, which is a Toll Brothers development, the homes and HOA common area in the low-lying sections had permanently soggy areas from both the soil composition and the runoff from Crofton Park. With the development of the high school and the Ridings, we now see more water in our creeks, causing significant erosion and sediment. The high school stormwater runoff has now created a new permanently wet areas on both sides, two sides of my house. And the creek flowing from high school that crosses under Salford Drive has eroded significantly since the construction with more accumulated sediment. The county school system says the added water in our creeks and the new wet areas come from increased rain, and it's not the fault of the stormwater management installed at the high school. We disagree. The high school stormwater mitigation designs do not suffice to control the runoff. The accumulation of water on our community common areas and the accelerated erosion in our creeks must be eliminated to ensure a healthy environment and to preserve the wetlands and the forest. We ask that the budget have funds to, one, evaluate stormwater mitigation designs for their impact on properties downstream from land being developed, two, investigate and correct the stormwater runoff problems that now exist, and three, determine and implement new stormwater mitigation standards that developers must meet. We support the periodic review and revision of stormwater mitigation standards to adjust to changing environmental conditions. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this issue of importance to our 62-home Crofton Colony community.
Thank you, Stephen. And if you're participating via Facebook, please feel free to leave a comment. Laura Jarvis, you're up next. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Laura Jarvis. I'm a current resident of the 55 and older community of Crofton Colony, just as Steve Sutton is, residing at 6821 Crofton Colony Court, where I'm the HOA Special Projects Lead for Stormwater and Erosion Management. I purchased my home in May of 2017 before the Ridings were developed, when the swale behind my house was shallow and waterfall minimal. Along with this written testimony, I submitted pictures demonstrating the extent of erosion in Crofton Colony. Page 4 shows the shallow swale in my backyard from June of 2017 compared to the same area of January 2021. It is quite clear our property has been destroyed by stormwater erosion from the Ridings. I say this with 100% certainty because I took a series of videos in 2020 documenting stormwater runoff during rainfalls. My video taken on September 3rd, 2020 proves stormwater gushing out of the stormwater outlet in Crofton Colony did not originate from our own homes, nor was the stormwater coming from water runoff from the street, but rather the stormwater originated from the Ridings development. That stormwater runoff is responsible for the destruction of our property, loss of our trees, and if not adequately corrected, will result in the loss of our home, surrounding fences, and additional trees. We are facing a catastrophic emergency. This is why I'm requesting the county authorize and appropriate funding to contain all stormwater at the Ridings. Isn't this a proper use of the rain tax? I am additionally requesting the county fund a stream restoration project to request 2.5 years of destruction of our property. We need the stream bed banks fortified to restore and preserve the environment. Our community never signed off on a right to discharge. Mr. Pittman, we recognize you inherited this wrongful discharge of stormwater on our property, but we are now asking you to put our community first by stopping the Ridings stormwater from entering Crofton Colony and funding stream bed restoration. Our home safety and our watersheds depend on your swift protective actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. Next, we have Bernard. And that's Bernard Nolan. You should be able to unmute yourself now. Okay, Bernard, we'll come back to you. Up next, we have Delia.
Hello.
Hi, Delia. You're up.
Hello, my name is Delilah Sirucci Schroeder. I've been a volunteer at Arundel County Animal Care and Control for 7 years, where my primary job is walking and socializing dogs. As a longtime shelter volunteer, I see the needs of its animals up close. Many come to the shelter with serious, sometimes heartbreaking medical issues. The hard-pressed shelter staff does what it can to help them, often aided by Friends of Anne Arundel County Animal Care and Control, the nonprofit that we volunteers created to help improve and save the lives of the shelter's homeless pets. Friends pays for outside visits to vets, for to examine animals with medical issues, and also for quite a few animals to go to private vet hospitals for everything from dental work to emergency life-saving care. But a public sector animal shelter should not have to rely on a small nonprofit partner to fund something as basic as its mission of veterinary care. And vet care is, in fact, a requirement in Maryland. The 2018 Maryland law that sets minimal care standards for public animal shelters requires that a veterinarian supervise the medical care of all animals at a shelter. Anne Arundel County does not appear to be meeting that standard. In contrast, Baltimore County Animal Services, which handles about the same number of animals each year as our Animal Care and Control, has 4 vets as staff. All incoming animals there are examined by a vet, and one of the vets also does daily rounds in the shelter. We're very grateful for what you did last year to help Animal Care and Control. So appreciative that both of you came to visit the shelter after last year's budget town halls. Please continue to help the homeless pets in our county by allowing Animal Care and Control to hire at least 1 veterinarian. Thank you.
Thank you, Delilah. Up next, we have Ken Borowski.
Good evening. I'm Ken Borowski. You also live in Crofton Colony, and you're going to hear from a number of us this evening. I have the pleasure of being the current president of the Crofton Colony Homeowners Association. As Steve and Laura said, we're an over 55 community, and we're located just off of Underwood Road. Over the past several years, we've been impacted by the building of Crofton High School right behind our development and the establishment of the Ridings housing development across Underwood Road from us. We have several issues that you will hear from this evening to include sidewalk repair throughout the neighborhood, addition of speed bumps on Underwood Road, and erosion as a result of water runoff due to the 2 recently constructed sites. As they said, we currently represent 62 homes, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity to have our voice today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. Sorry, Ken. We're going to try Bernard once again. Bernard Nolan, are you there? Okay, let's move on to Chuck Woods.
Oh, good evening. My name's Chuck Woods, and I also live in the 62 home 55 and over community called Crofton Colony. We live at 6819 Crofton Colony Court. And in fact, we were the very first residents to move into our fine community back in 2002. Our property backed up to the drainage swale that has seen an immense change over the past couple of years. During our first 15 years here, a heavy rainstorm or a hurricane would change the swale and have it run more like a creek. And then after rain stopped, it would return to a dry swale. However, since 2018, the building of a new community, the Ridings by the Toll Brothers across Underwood Road from Crofton Colony, the stormwater flow has been enormous. It has been so bad that the swale has now become a chasm. My grandkids used to play with trucks in the swale, and now I can't let them get anywhere near the chasm for fear it'll collapse. Our HOA has had to remove a couple of trees that became compromised by the erosion, and there are 2 more trees behind our house that are uprooted and leaning on other large trees, or they would have fallen. There are many more trees that the licensed tree expert has declared will become compromised if the erosion is not corrected. The original grading and stormwater plan for the Ridings was done in like the 2013-14 for Whitehall development. At some point, the whole plan was sold to Toll Brothers along with the land. They built the same 42 homes that were in the original plan. they built a collection area, which I thought was going to be a holding pond near the entrance. However, it's really just a funnel. So all the water from the front half of the Ridings community comes in that funnel into our backyard. It used to create an acre-sized lake over on the side farm, but that acre-sized lake now comes into our backyard. So my budget plea is that we increase in permits and inspections so that they can see that the stormwater management plan works as built rather than just on paper. We also need stream restoration, which I thought the rain tax would cover, but if that's not sufficient, we need additional monies for stream restoration. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Up next, we have Robert.
Yes, hi. I'm also a Crofton Colony resident, and at 6825.
Robert, you muted yourself. Robert, are you able to unmute yourself? There you go.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Here we go. Same thing. We'll try that back in.
Robert, we can hear you and you're free to talk.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's not working.
I guess he can't hear us.
Oh, no, so I'm stuck.
Okay, why don't we come back? Why don't we come back to Robert? Up next, we have Julia Howes.
Good evening. My name is Julia Howes, and I am a resident of District 7, 4951 Chestnut Street, 20764. I come to you tonight with many issues and concerns for the budget and for our community. I understand roads in Southern District are a combination of state and county roads. However, I feel there should be a combined effort to keep those projects marked as important. District 7 is rural and home to many farmers. Those farmers have equipment that travel the roads, and some are taller than the power lines. Not only do we need the roads themselves in good conditions for the vehicles and equipment to pass on, but we also need the trees and debris clear as they pass. There are many ditches, and many of them are not properly maintained or cleaned on a regular basis. This causes many issues and additional runoff going into the Chesapeake Bay. Please take our community into account when scheduling these important maintenance issues. I attended the Deal Community Park celebration, and I'm excited to see the park become a reality. Parents, families, and members of the community are looking forward to this project. We've seen how important our parks and being outside can be over this past year. Please keep this project moving and accelerate if possible. We would like to know the status of the swim area of the Beverly Triton Park. We were supposed to have an open swim area this summer, and the construction has not even started. Please let us know so that we can plan for that. Youth sports are also important for our children. Not only do they need the coaches, the teams, and the equipment, but they also need the fields to play on. Our children are out in the evening time practicing, mostly in the dark. I have been on the field with flashlights or headlights just so they could see. It's a huge issue and needs to be addressed. We have also been reminded over the last year how important education is. Our school is crowded and missing many important positions. Mental health is a huge issue we face with our students as they return to the classroom. The demand will only grow. Please fund these important positions and additional staff members. I ask for one non-specific budget request in closing. Please work with the small businesses in Arundel County. They have been the backbone of our community. They stepped up when we needed them the most. They made huge sacrifices, and they kept people hired and supported those in need. Please support small businesses, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Julia. And just as a reminder, if you're participating via Zoom, if you would like to give a testimony, just click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen and you'll be entered into a queue. Once I call your name, you'll be given the opportunity to speak. And now we have up Scott King.
Good evening, County Executive Pittman, Councilwoman Hare, members of your staff, fellow residents of Anne Arundel County, and other interested parties on the call. My name is Scott King. I reside within the 55 and older community identified as Crofton Colony at the very end of Crofton Colony Court, a home that sits adjacent to the backside of the Crofton Meadows community. I'm here this evening to provide information concerning the alarming increase of water flowing through our neighborhood into Crofton Meadows along a topographic depression that eventually leads into the identified tributary called Gulf Run. I say alarming increase as I've only purchased my home 20 months ago. What was a dry swale behind my property line in May of 2019 is now transformed into a continuous rivulet. The 100-year flood zone beyond my property towards Crofton Meadows has now become a water-laden swamp with continuous standing water. During precipitation events, this rivulet transforms into a flowing creek that often swells over its, quote, banks. To support this, I've included as part of a statement provided earlier pictures from last Friday, the 22nd of January, to show the current state after 6 days with no rainfall. Also included are pictures from last November during a very rainy day. Other members of our community can attest to when this activity began and with the obvious source of the water flow. Therefore, our community is speaking out this evening to seek action and obtain relief from the situation. Having lived in Louisiana, I'm very familiar with the risks of flooding and water runoff management. I'm also very familiar with health risks to the population from standing water as it creates an unhealthy environmental condition in the form of bacteria, insects, and vermin. Clearly, the recent ridings, development, and conversion of open parkland into a high school campus are contributing to this situation. While the plans for stormwater management might have reviewed and approved independently, they are not holistically mitigating the risk of water flooding existing properties. Also at risk is the Crofton Colony stormwater drainage system that flows under this area, shown in an access manhole in one of my photographs. Further, this situation could result in a public health crisis in our area due to the increase of the mosquito population that could be carrying diseases such as Zika or West Nile virus, as well as other waterborne illnesses. These are situations that no one hopes will occur, but we feel are coming to our neighborhood if not addressed by the administration. At 57, I've spent most of my life as a resident of not just Maryland, but within Anne Arundel County. And other than the 10 years or so in Louisiana, this county has served as an ideal location to grow up, participate in community programs, work at leading technology providers, protecting our national interests, raise 3 active children, and now focus on establishing a final place of residence to spend my retirement. The residents of our county depend on our elected leadership to work for all our citizens, and I've seen our county council leverage resources in the past to support the citizenry. I'm sure that your administration can provide the resources to take the required corrective actions to address our concerns and return this identified area of woodlands back to its previous state. I thank you for your time this evening and for your staff that has listened to the concerns of this community over the past several years, even before I became a member of Crofton Colony community.
Thank you, Scott. Just as a reminder, we have about 106 people on the call and 25 people have their hand raised. So please, I know we all have a lot to share, but let's try our best to stick to the 2-minute time. Up next, we have Jennifer Stivers.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, hi, my name is Jennifer Stivers. I'm a volunteer and foster at Anne Arundel County Animal Care and Control. Thank you both, Councilwoman Hare and County Executive Pittman, for touring the shelter last year and for seeing firsthand what the shelter needs most. I am advocating for the county to invest in larger cat cages due to the fact that the existing cages do not meet modern standards as outlined in the Maryland Department of Agriculture's minimum standards of care. As you saw during your tour, the shelter has 2-foot cube cages in its cat gallery. With the exception of a lucky few who have larger hand-me-downs from other local shelters, cats of all sizes are housed in this tight space. When staff or volunteers arrive in the morning to clean and feed the animals, it is not uncommon to see litter in the cat's food or water. This can trigger health issues, such as lack of appetite that results in loss of weight. Studies regarding modern cat cages show that cats eat better with greater separation between food, water, and elimination. It is also not uncommon for scared cats to be attempting to hide, but due to lack of space are still inches within those who are trying to clean and feed. Current cages are many times too small for carriers or feral cat boxes, which would provide a safe place for scared cats to hide. This poses a possible risk of scratches and or bites to staff and or volunteers as they are unable to maintain a safe distance from possibly fractious animals. This lack of space also means that cats are more likely to be touching the staff or volunteer member attempting to clean and feed, which, despite how careful everyone is, undoubtedly contributes to the spread of illness, resulting in more upper respiratory infections or outbreaks of other contagious illnesses such as ringworm. With these points in mind, please invest in larger cat cages for animal care and control to make Anne Arundel County the best place for all, including the county staff and animal residents.
Thank you, Jennifer. Up next, we have Elizabeth.
Good evening. Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening. We can hear you.
My name's, good evening, Council Woman Hare, County Executive Pittman, and County Leadership. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Maxwell Schmidt, and I'm a resident of District 7 in Edgewater. And I'm delighted to be here to advocate for one of our local crown jewels, the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra. My family and I have attended the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra's Labor Day concert at Quiet Waters Park for many years. And we love the fact that it's been always free and open to the general public, and a wonderful way to really enjoy great music. And in the past, company of literally thousands of people, including young folks who get the opportunity to see and listen to musicians from our community. Now, as a member of the Annapolis Symphony Orchestra Board, I want to thank the county for financial support that's been provided for many years to make this concert a reality. The pandemic has necessitated many changes to the ASO, and as a member of the COVID committee on our symphonies board, we continue to review data and recommend safe practices applicable to each venue. As a board, we continue to make careful decisions to ensure the welfare of both players and patrons. The pandemic forced us to cancel the concert in 2020, but the possibility of the 2021 concert begins with sound financial planning. It costs more than $40,000 to produce this event, and I'd like to ask the county to bring its financial support for this concert up to the $20,000 level that it has provided in the past. We believe bringing this free concert back on Sunday, September 5th will be a true gift to the community. I encourage the county to continue its financial support so that we can continue to make great and joyful music available to everyone. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Up next, we have Katherine Hallerbach.
Good evening. I'm Katherine Hallerbach, Chief of Public Services for the Anne Arundel County Public Library. I'm testifying this evening in support of the library's budget, as well as to share the tremendous impact libraries continue to have in our community, even in a pandemic. As soon as we closed our doors in March, we began offering virtual programs. So far, more than 30,000 people have tuned in. We have significantly increased our collection of ebooks and audiobooks and streaming movies. We've expanded our at-home access to popular databases like Ancestry.com and added valuable online learning resources for job seekers. We've increased hours for our free online tutoring service, Brainfuse, with more than 36,000 people getting homework help. We now offer Chromebook and Wi-Fi kits for checkout and have boosted Wi-Fi in our parking lots. Soon after we brought our staff back on June 1st, we started offering curbside pickup for materials and printing. Nearly 90,000 customers have already taken advantage of this safe option. I have a quick customer testimonial from Ms. Brown in Crofton. I wanted to thank the Crofton Library. I work in special education and have been providing distance learning to my students. I do not own a printer, so the library has been a lifesaver. I've picked up documents on 2 occasions. Staff is accommodating and helpful. I'm so thankful for the free masks at the pickup station as I have 2 high-risk parents. I also appreciate the to-go crafts, and I'm saving those for when I get to see my students in person again. The library is celebrating its 100th birthday this year in 2021. To help us become the library of the next 100 years, we need your help. We have important infrastructure and IT needs to prevent future cyber attacks and allow us to expand our virtual services. We also need to provide a path for advancement for our entry-level professional staff who so innovatively serve our customers. I urge your support of our requests. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katherine. Up next, we have James Chandler.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you to County Executive Pittman and County Council Member Hare and Arundel County staff. My family and I reside at 1471 Jordan Avenue in Crofton. I appreciate the opportunity that you're providing to the public to help inform the county's FY22 budget, certainly despite the challenges that come with operating in a virtual environment. My family and I are appreciative of the county's commitment to funding our public schools, assisting small businesses in their recovery, and multimodal transportation planning and infrastructure projects. I do think it's important that the county continue to plan for and invest in infrastructure that is going to be necessary to support both our current and future residents of the county. Additionally, provided the county can demonstrate that additional revenue could enhance county infrastructure and services, I would certainly support a small increased property tax rate. I am curious what each cent of increased rate would translate into revenue for the county. Also, in closing, I'd like to thank Executive Pitt on hiring of Chief of Police Mal Awad. I've had the pleasure of working with Chief Awad, and certainly appreciative that we have her leadership leading the Arundel County Police Department. With that, thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you so much, James. Up next, we have Matt Minahan. Matt, you should have the ability to unmute yourself.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
There you go. We can hear you now, Matt.
Okay, thanks, Vincent. Thanks, County Executive Pittman and also Councilwoman Hare. I'm speaking as president of the Neighbors of the Mayo Peninsula. We are a peninsula where 20% of our land is parkland, and we have an intense interest in making sure that our parks are well protected and well preserved. So our first request is that there be no money in the budget for any further development of Mayo parks until the county can engage in a meaningful conversation and a dialogue with the residents of the peninsula. It's been hard to get going and hard to maintain, and we're hoping to be involved in those conversations. Our second request is that there be an increase in the parks budget for rangers and seasonal workers in summer of 2021. As you know, we were very intensely burdened and the staff was way overburdened for the level of visitors that they received. Third request we have is to fund parks on a life cycle basis so that the county does a better job of life cycle funding all parks, not just here, but in the county. There's $3 to $4 million for the Route 214 corridor from Muddy Creek eastbound. We hope that you'll maintain that and add to that in the county budget as well. We'd like to see more attention to climate change and rising tides. And I'll just add one PS, not for the neighbors of the Mayo Peninsula, but as a member of Selby Bay, we hope that you can provide some funding, some design funding for the restoration of Long Point right here in Selby Bay, which is disappearing by the minute. Thanks very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Matt. Just so everyone knows, we have about 24 hands currently raised. So if you click the raise hand button, we are working our way to you. So just be a little patient. Up next, we have Bruce Spencer.
Hi, good evening, everybody, and I appreciate your time and certainly the forum that we're being provided here as citizens of the county. So thank you to the leadership for including us. My involvement here really is not as specific as many of our attendees tonight with regard to specific stormwater runoff and things like that, but really more on behalf of the totality of our Recs and Parks Department. Simply that, you know, today our youth have been sitting on the sidelines for almost an entire year now as it relates to participation in sports and activities. And there's so much focus now on mental health for all of our citizens and also with our youth. And I can't think of a better use of our funds and our money than in the Recs and Parks Department. I was formerly a DAA basketball commissioner for our kids down here. My kids are actually grown now, so I don't have any horse in the race, if you will, as it relates to many of our residents and the folks that are on this call tonight with a passion for their own locality. I'm only here to really advocate for truly Recs and Parks overall, simply because I know how good it's been for my children. I have 3 sons, and I would encourage you to make sure that as we've competed with other counties as it relates to teachers and public safety, that we all make an attempt to do the same thing for you know, the youth as it relates to physical activities, because physical activities certainly contribute to our own mental health and well-being. So on behalf of Recs and Parks in total, I really appreciate any involvement and love you might provide them in the budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bruce. Next, we have Brian Holzlander.
Holzlander, that's correct. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Brian, we lost you for a second. We're going to start you over, okay?
Hello, I'm Brian Holtzlander. I represent the proud firefighters and paramedics serving Anne Arundel County every day. Thank you, County Executive Pittman and Councilwoman Hare and all the citizens of Anne Arundel County for this opportunity to speak with you tonight. First, we want to acknowledge that our county is hurting. We recognize the sacrifice and the loss over these last 10 months, and we just want you to know that we see you and we're here for you. In addition to that, we also recognize everything everyone is doing to help one another, and we're just so proud to serve and to be a part of this community. The truth is, though, after cut by the previous administration, we were desperate. We didn't have enough firefighters and paramedics to keep our community safe, and County Executive Pittman recognized that and didn't hesitate and has worked with us to solve the problem. And that solution came in the form of budget hearings just like this, where we talked it over and we allocated the funds. None of us knew how bad this was going to get, but it's only because of the additional firefighters that he's put on the fire engine and the ambulances that we've been able to hang on. We're proud of the work our paramedics have done and the service of our trucks and ambulances, but we're depleted and our equipment is depleted. Chief Wolfer's budget includes funding to train the next generation of paramedics we need and replace the equipment that has been running the ground during the pandemic. We're so thankful for all the support we've gotten from the citizens in this difficult time, and we grieve with you all the losses. Like I said, we've been in those rooms in the houses, and we know, but we'll keep fighting. You'll keep fighting with us, and Chief Wolfer's budget is the first step in putting this pandemic down for good. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Brian. Up next, we have Alan and Meyer.
Okay, you can hear me, I hope?
We can hear you, Alan.
Thank you. I'm Alan Meyer, and I reside at 6813 Crofton Colony Court. I'm a member of the HOA board, and I live here with my wife after having moved here to Maryland about 4.5 years ago from New Jersey. We've enjoyed immensely living in Maryland. However, about 2.5 years ago, as a member of the HOA board, I contacted the county about 2 items that I have considerable experience with as a civil engineer. The first was the fact that our community has 3 retention basins that normally contain some water. The second related item was that the Ridings development was in construction without any retention basin to hold water and thereby reduce the stormwater runoff during peak periods of storms. As a result, I saw the stream bed between Crofton Colony Court and Underwood Road become increasingly eroded at an alarmingly rapid rate in a very short period of time. You've heard several of my neighbors speak of this same item. After some county personnel came out and looked at our worsening problem, they responded that the problem was caused by the 7 lots along Crofton Colony Court that drain towards the head wall where the Riding stormwater exits. As an engineer familiar with the topography, I can tell you that the conclusion is entirely false. Riding drains, well, I got cut to the chase. That I was told that by the county personnel that the basins were working exactly as they were designed to trap pollutants from silt and getting water into the waterways and eventually the bay. However, in the time between the construction of our community in 2002 and now, the county permanently does not believe in detention basins, but instead has gone to bioswales, which have been used in the Ridings. Although these swales may be a good concept for recharging water into the ground, they cannot by themselves reduce or control stormwater runoff from a 42-home development that was previously sod farm. After Toll Brothers makes improvements to their properties, or Toll Brothers must improve their properties. If that's done, the county and/or Toll Brothers must be responsible for the unbelievable remediation that's to be necessary to our ravine that has been damaged severely. What we are asking for is the county to consider in the upcoming budget development of funds to A, sue developers that have created problems downstream, or B, provide remediation by the county of downstream problems. Also, to increase the personnel in county engineering to more thoroughly review proposed subdivisions and developments and confirm the adherence to the requirements after development to prevent similar problems. Thank you for your attention and anticipated help with these concerns.
Thank you, Alan. Up next, we have William Boyd.
Good evening. Thanks for putting this on. I'll try to keep it brief. I think we've got to put first responders and public safety high or on the highest shelf for the budget. We should get 214 squared away before we continue to fund improvements in the parks. We should put more in the budget for operations with improvements to the parks. We should continue to improve the 214 corridor in Mayo, particularly the county project at the intersection of Shoreham and Triton. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, William. Up next, we have Susan Cochran. Susan, you should be able to unmute yourself.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Susan Cochran with the Edgewater Citizens Association. I have a few items that I'd like to discuss. First, the Edgewater is a community of many waterfront communities and on the South River. And so therefore, we want to know what the provisions the county is making for dealing with rising water due to climate change, because storms and high tides are leading to flooding along these communities near the South River. Also, waterfront community like London Town does not have wastewater sewers. They've been there for 45 years. They have water, but no wastewater sewers, which is a very expensive process. But I need to see that Edgewater Beach is in the budget for help. And I think something similar should be done for communities like London Town. Central Avenue Park has never been developed, but thank goodness it is conserving parkland and woodlands, which we need so much. So I would like to see something done with that. And there's a property right next to it. This is in private hands, but is all woodlands and is not developed, which would make a very good addition to Central Avenue Park. Also, a study for trails and bicycle paths has been suggested. And trails and bicycle paths in Edgewater and down through South County are something that our citizens are very interested in. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And we are over time technically, but I think it's okay that we take some more testimony. But please, again, let's stick to the 2-minute time frame. Up next is Calvin Rich.
Yes, sir. My name is Cal Rich. I also live in the Crofton Colony community, and hopefully I'll be a little briefer than some of my cohorts. I have a couple of items that were ongoing that we'd like to see picked up again. And I'm sure it was because of the COVID and all of that. But anyway, for several years, Crofton Colony residents have sent requests to Anne Arundel County to correct sidewalk tripping hazards caused by tree roots lifting concrete sidewalk panels, trees and sidewalks on county property. It's an especially dangerous environment given Crofton Colony's population of senior taxpayers to enjoy walking throughout the community. After years of installing temporary and ineffective asphalt wedges, the county had finally promised some action in 2020 in a letter dated from Fred Schaefer, Project Supervisor, Infrastructure Management Division. This letter stated that work was scheduled for July 2020, but to date, no work has occurred. Please include this sidewalk hazard construction as a priority in 2021 if the post-COVID budget allows it. Second one quickly is during August, September of 2019 timeframe, Crofton Colony through our HOA board supported the residents who live on Underwood Road for the installation of 3 speed bumps on Underwood Road. This was sought as a means of slowing traffic on this road. Traffic on Underwood has increased in both volume and speed as more people use it to avoid Route 3. Certainly will only get worse once the new Crofton Colony High School opens. While the installation of these speed bumps have been somewhat effective, it has resulted in traffic accelerating northbound as soon as they clear the final speed bump. They also do nothing to slow the southbound traffic until it has passed Crofton Colony and the Ridings entrances. This makes it difficult, if not sometimes dangerous, to exit our communities for not only the residents, but the school buses coming in and out of the riding. So we had been working with Eric Terry, seeking the installation of 1 or 2 additional speed bumps north of Crofton Colony Drive and south of Falksway Road. With the pandemic in 2020, all progress on this seems to have halted. We would like to see a renewal of the study to install the additional speed bumps to slow our traffic. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Calvin. Up next, we have William LaPerche. Hi, William. It looks like you've unmuted yourself. All right, we'll come back to William.
Okay.
Oh. Can we try William one more time? It sounds like he got through.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, William.
Okay, I'm the owner of a property in Deal called the Swamplex. I bought it in the 90s sometime, and we've had a continuous baseball field, concert venue, and firewood business here. And for some reason, in the last year, the county has been violating me one thing after another. And I also run a ministry. I'm an ordained minister. And everybody that lives down here knows we've given away firewood for free for years and years and years. And for some reason, I'm being bothered by the county. I think the county's suing me. I'm not sure. I haven't been served yet. And I'm just not sure why, because I'm a longtime youth coach. I'm getting ready to reopen. We've basically been open, but the county for the last 2 years has been sending out the inspectors and violating me for stuff I've done forever. And I'm providing a valuable service here. And I've reached out to Jessica Hare, I've reached out to Stuart Pittman, and I have to apologize, Stuart. I've been a little harsh in my public criticism of you, and I realize what a tough job you have, and I see you're making very good steps now, so I'm going to tone down my rhetoric. But I need the county to come out here and the liaison and talk to me. I let kids use the field for free. I've kept it in nature, and I just don't understand what's going on. So in a time now where people are hurting, I'm providing free wood to many, many people, and everybody knows that. So the stress of all this harassment in the county is bothering me. So could maybe somebody reach out to me and I can meet with the county liaison officer and we can sort this out? Could shutting it down now wouldn't be good. A lot of people need this wood. So I'm grandfathered in, I'm zoned correctly. I just don't understand what's going on. So that's pretty much what I have to say.
Thank you, William. Up next, we have John Roderick.
Can I just break the rules and ask for William's address?
Yes, William, could you unmute yourself?
We'll figure out how to get it.
Okay, yeah.
All right, I got his name down.
I'm unmuted. I'm unmuted. Can you
What's
hear
your
me?
address?
I'm 289 East Bayfront Road, Mr. Pittman. And I just don't understand what's going on. And the baseball league that plays here is a historically black league that plays at Hopscotch Park. And I think there's some racial kind of element going on with my neighbors. And I just want to mitigate this, right?
All right, we'll get with you. Thanks.
Thanks again, William. John, you're up next.
Yes, thank you. You hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I am the president of the Saunders Point Citizens Association. We sit on the peninsula between the Beverly Triton Beach Park and the Mayo Park. And I first want to thank County Executive Pittman for last year freeing up some funds for the increased police presence we had here. It was very helpful. And so when the park opened, we desperately needed that. So I appreciate it. This year, we are requesting an increase in the park rangers at the park, as well as the police patrols on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays in the community and around the parks. Last year, we saw the rangers at the park acting as parking lot attendants and not being in the park where the people were to help out. Also, we had the police, while we did have increased police presence, usually we had one police officer and his duties were split between helping us in the community with the illegal parking when the park was full and people using our community facilities when they didn't belong here, as well as trying to patrol over in the park itself. So we need probably double the police patrols and double the rangers. Also, we understand that they're going to implement the permit system at the Mayo Park, which we're very excited for, but we're concerned it's not at Beverly Triton Beach Park. And we also understand that Fort Smallwood Park will be closed, and this is only going to create more traffic at Beverly Triton Beach Park and our community. So we look forward to working with the Rangers and the police in the upcoming season, but we need resources in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Up next, we have Michael Shear.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi there, my name is Mike Meyer. I'm a board member of our county's Fraternal Order of Police. I just wanted to thank County Executive Pittman and Councilwoman Hare for allowing all of us, the citizens of Anne Arundel County, the opportunity to participate in this budget process. We, as members of the Fraternal Order of Police officers, also appreciate the support that the county has given us in the prior budget allocations for our county's public safety. And recently, we appreciate the support from County Executive Pittman and Councilwoman Hare for eliminating what we call one of the biggest inefficiencies in county government, which was having two separate contracts for our police officers and police supervisors. We're hard at work at combining those into one. Like our brothers and sisters in the fire, sheriffs, and detention agencies, our police officers have been on the front lines of this pandemic, and we proudly stand together with all of our public safety brethren and the medical professionals that have been fighting for everybody's health and safety. We are proud to do so, but we do need both the support of our elected officials and the citizens of Anne Arundel County. We appreciate the current elected officials finally beginning to make the staffing improvements that prior administrations had promised over and over again and had always failed to deliver on. As the county executive indicated, we've seen more progress in the past 2 years than in the prior decade, but we are still trailing behind from where we need to be. We ask that our leaders don't halt this progress this budget cycle. Our police officers in the county pride ourselves as belonging to one of, if not the most professional police agencies you can find, but we are under tremendous pressure every day. We still lag behind in areas such as staffing and technology, and therefore it's vitally important that both our citizens and our elected leaders support the funding of our personnel and operations budgets for our police departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Up next, we have Ronald Deacon.
Hello.
Hi, Ronald.
Hi, I am Ron Deacon, and I'm retired, and I live in Reba in District 7. And for many years, I have appreciated the fact that Anne Arundel County has one of the lowest property tax rates, as well as local tax rate in Maryland. We should be proud of that. And I hope it does not change, and I hope the county executive and the county council feel the same way. even though I'm nowhere near a $500,000 limit. I also, in principle, like the local tax the way it is. I have noticed that the major source of revenue for the county is real estate property taxes. Since assessments are increasing this year, increased revenue should be more than enough to cover any needed increase in expenses. I was recently thinking more about real estate taxes since they are so important. Our county has a lot of farmland and woodland. Owners of farms are taxed comparatively little compared to those with residential land. I know there are reasons for that. One is to preserve farming and agricultural land. However, I read that Purdue will be moving one of its companies out of Anne Arundel County because of the lack of farm activity. Maybe the county, along with the state, should be looking into this. If land is not being used adequately for farming, maybe those landowners should be paying more in real estate taxes. If assessments are based on value and the land is valuable, especially if it were to be sold to development, maybe it should be taxed at market value or something close to market value. This is just something to consider about to increase revenue and make real estate taxes more equitable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Up next, we have Brendan Demoter.
Yes, Dometer. I'll be quick. So Bill 9820, I live in Lock Haven, down the Mayo Peninsula, and we sent a letter to Ms. Hare, and she replied back to us that this bill, as we all noted, was not discussed with anybody. The issue that we're having is that buildable lots in the Mayo Peninsula were assessed a foot frontage fee beginning in 92, and it goes until 2032. And we're assessed $233.62 a year for the Mayo treatment facility. Obviously, the taxes are still being collected on it. We were forced to divert the wastewater to Annapolis, and this was built with federal funding, which resulted in the closure of the Mayo treatment facility. That was built on federal funding, and we just received a letter in the mail stating that we're going to pay an additional 30% EPA fee, which basically means we're getting double taxed. We're hoping that we can just, open the conversation. And again, Ms. Hare has done a great job trying to, get this conversation open. But we're hoping that, the county executive, as well as others, can help further this so we can figure out why we're double paying, because we don't feel it's right. And again, Ms. Hare and Mr. Volk both did not vote for this. The bill was 9820. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Everyone is doing an excellent job. I know we have about 19 hands still raised, and I know people are starting to drop off a little bit. So if you would like your testimony, if you have it written, if you would like to submit it, you can submit it to countyexecutive@aacounty.org. Again, countyexecutive@aacounty.org, and we'll make sure that testimony gets to both the county executive and Councilwoman Hare. Up next, we have Marsha Perry.
Thank you very much. Marsha Perry, and I too am from Crofton, but not Crofton Colony. But we also have property in Shoreham Beach in Edgewater. We've lived here in the county since 1965, and I've been known in my time in the legislature and in community involvements as a tree hugger, sometimes with disdain, of course, from developer interests. And my concern tonight is trees. I'm concerned about the funds for the Forestry Board that did not show up in this budget. It was $10,000 that has been the normal grant amount, and that is what is missing. The money has been used in the past for interns and mostly for the volunteer coordinator. There's a commitment that the board has to plant over 1,000 trees at the fairgrounds, which is incredibly important, but no one to coordinate these efforts. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation has as its priority legislation this year involved with climate control, basically, of setting a goal of planting 5 million trees by the year 2030 in the state. And obviously, Anne Arundel County will get a large number of those. So it's not the good time at all to take away this position, which funds having been used since its inception And the board was originally founded, I believe, by Joe Klein in this county around the early 1900s. So it is, as far as I'm concerned, criminal not to support these funds. I see I made it in 2 minutes, but I could probably talk an hour. There was a meeting of the board this morning, and this is the latest news I have, is that there has not been a restoration of those funds to date.
Thank you, Marcia. Up next, we have Jakayla Call.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I am a Lothian resident and my family has resided here for 5 generations. This request is important to my family and I because we have and still are suffering from the lack of resources in Lothian. I'm a recent graduate with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and an associate's degree in juvenile justice. Over the last 5 years, I have studied how children and adults are affected by various societal impacts that influences their decision-making. There are studies that show that due to lack of resources, crime rate increases. When we don't have an appropriate outlet or facilities available to our youth, we can expect negative outcomes. Parks are great for health and recreational usage. I think the park is a good starting point to provide our youth a safe outlet to engage in physical activity and to build relationships within the community. This Sandsworth Park is in a great location to target children and lower income families. The park sits on 182 acres for government usage, but only provides 2 basketball courts to our community. If we can possibly expand that park to include a playground and a multi-purpose field, it would be a great start to bridging the gap within the local communities. COVID has shown us that outdoor space is valuable to have, and when we overcome the current pandemic, the residents of Lothian deserve a place to enjoy with one another. To quote County Council Member Jessica Hare from the article published in 2020 by Bay Weekly, every community needs a place where all kids and adults can come together for safe outdoor recreation. We hope that this can be a model for other communities to follow. You don't need a ton of space to make an impact. The pandemic has shown us even more how important it is to have accessible outdoor space. I would like to live in a county that is one of the most progressive and forward-thinking counties in Maryland. Taking into consideration all the division that has been going on in the world, I would like to find a common ground for Lothian residents. While the park is my initial request, I think we can make a valuable difference by providing Lothian additional resources such as a community center that is functional, offer mentor programs, tutoring, open gyms, and more. I conducted a survey, and within 24 hours, I received 202 responses with 178 residents in favor of a park in Lothian. I have also compiled some additional data to support my request and will provide it by email. Thank you.
Thank you, Jakayla. Up next, we have Allison Polterack.
Yes, hello. My name is Allison Polterack, and I reside in District 7 in Riva. I'm the chairman of the board of directors of the Annapolis Dragon Boat Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And our mission is to promote the development of healthy bodies and spirits, and to support recovery from breast cancer and other cancers, and to grow teamwork and fellowship among our members, most of whom are cancer survivors. The sport of dragon boating offers a means of building physical strength and endurance and confidence, which is particularly important for cancer survivors. We currently have 2 boats, each of which holds 22 people, that we store on Spa Creek. And tonight, I'm speaking in support of the Recs and Parks budget funding for construction of a county rowing and paddling facility along Harness Creek in Quiet Waters Park. This project will increase public access to our local waterways and enhance healthy rowing and paddling sports involvement in the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Up next, we have Lauren Pensack.
Hi, my name is Pat Pensick, and my wife Lauren and I live on raising our children on a 9-acre farm in South County in Owings, and we produce a lot of produce that is sold all over the county, as well as grain, and just started a vineyard. A couple issues I want to talk through and give my input on. One, during the pandemic, with schools shut down and kids not able to attend in person, we were forced to do things over the internet. And we don't have high-power internet, high-speed internet, and many of our neighbors don't in southern Anne Arundel County. And a lot of the folks in the agricultural community have been left behind in terms of the educational access that their children have. Living 40 minutes outside of the nation's capital, I think we can do better than that. The other thing is the roads in the southern part of the county, especially towards the county line, people have been driving like crazy. We've had 2 deaths in 1 month on the road that we live on. And I think it has something to do with county lines and jurisdiction of police. So with increased police presence on speed is necessary. The last item I disagree wholeheartedly with what was mentioned on taxes on real estate. It's not the farming community, that is the wealthy community. The Purdue facility is being shut down and is leaving nowhere for a lot of small businesses, small farmers that have made up the bread and butter of this community to store their grain. So that's all I have.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Lisa Arasmith. Lisa.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you now.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Lisa Arasmith. I am the chair of the Public Water Access Committee, a group of wet heat activists who work to get everyone in the county to the water. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in support of public swimming beaches. 80% of the people in Arundel County do not live in waterfront homes or water privileged communities. There are so few public swimming beaches that it's hard for us to find a place to join the water. When I moved here from Iowa in 1991, I soon found it was easier to go swimming in landlocked Iowa than Anne Arundel County. First, funding for a decades overdue public swimming beach at Beverly Triton Park was the proudest accomplishment of this council's first budget in 2019. The beach construction was set to begin in fall 2020 and the swimming beach opened to the public in summer 2021. It would have been a blessed relief for families in our second pandemic summer. However, these families sure are in for a disappointment. Beach construction hasn't begun. Permits haven't been issued. Is there even construction contract? The county has to stop dragging its feet and get this public swimming beach at Beverly Triton done. Second, Mayo Beach Park is the nicest county swimming beach and should be open 7 days a week all year round. Instead, the county treats Mayo Beach like good china and brings it out for holidays and special occasions. It's only open on limited weekends. Mayo Beach Park should be an everyday treat for all of us, including essential workers who work weekends, grandparents who are caring for grandkids during the pandemic, parents who are homeschooling their children, and people who prefer a quieter day at the beach. Third, the county must stop the secret reservation system planned in secret for Mayo Beach Park. For one thing, people don't do things they're proud of in secret, whether it's county government or teenagers sneaking around. Making it harder for people to go swimming is nothing to be proud of, especially in a recession and a pandemic. You shouldn't need a smartphone, an app, and pay for a reservation just to get into a county park. Manage capacity by creating a waiting parking lot at Mayo Elementary School and send people down to the park when a parking spot opens up. Increase capacity by opening Mayo Beach Park 7 days a week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Up next, we have Mike Lofton.
All right, I think I'm unmuted.
Yes, we can hear you, Mike.
Great, thank you. Good evening. I'm Mike Lofton. I'm a 50-year resident of District 7. Mr. Pittman, when you took office, I was really encouraged when you modified the county's slogan, "Welcome to Anne Arundel, the best place for all." Sadly, it's not. The public is spending billions, with a B, billions of dollars to make the bay fishable and swimmable, millions to acquire waterfront property using scarce public recreation dollars. For whom? Certainly not for all. If you own a waterfront home or live in a water privileged community, you are the beneficiaries of this massive undertaking. If you depend on the public parks for access, you're going to be disappointed. The park's closed, it's reserved for a private party, the park is full, it may even be leased to a private community for their exclusive use. What's the problem? The plan's under review, the other guy's plan, we need to study it. It's endless. Who is it that is left unserved? It's the people of limited means, it's people of color, it's first generation Americans, it's the ordinary families trying to find safe recreation space in stressful times. In a time when commitments to racial justice and equity are made by public officials in every plan, speech, and press release, it's time to perform on the promise. The public has owned waterfront properties at Beverly Triton, Mayo Beach, and South River Farm for decades. Basic health and safety improvements have been master planned and funded for years. It's simply unconscionable that the projects have not been accomplished. I implore you to focus on this, insist that your staff get the job done. It's well past time for effective leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. In the interest of time, we want to get to as many people as possible. We still have quite a few hands up, so we're going to reduce the timer to 1 minute. If you could keep it within that 1 minute time frame, it would be greatly appreciated moving forward. So next, we have Susan Jacinto.
Hello, my name is Susan. Hi, thank you all so much for letting me speak tonight. I think it's important that the 2022 budget focus on lifting up the people in this county that need the most help. When everyone has equal access to opportunities to grow and prosper, there is a benefit that comes to all of us. I would like to see funding to implement the recommendations for eliminating the opportunity gap, and there should be funding for an affordable housing assessment. We need to increase funding in our public schools for counselors and mental health specialists, and I think it's time we revisit funding for school resource officers, also known as police in our schools. And I had a little more to say, but I will respect the new 1 minute time limit. And I thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Up next, we have Kenneth Schaefer.
Good evening. My name's Ken Schaefer. I live on Pennington Court in the Mayo Peninsula. I wanted to talk about the Mayo Beach Park and Beverly Triton Nature Park, emphasis on nature. I understand that the parks are open sometimes and that further development's planned, and people have talked about swimming beaches and stuff. I support public access to the bay, but this summer has shown that the demand far outstrips the supply. And we've got, it was a zoo this summer on weekends. The traffic was unbearable. And people were circling around, driving through the neighborhoods, waiting for a slot to get into the park. And I'm interested in the Water Access Committee people's views. They have an interesting complaint because every time I walk past the park, the gates open and people must have a secret key because they're in there windsurfing and using the park all the time, even when it's closed. I'm curious how that can happen. Should I start calling the police non-emergency number when I see that? As a resident, I'm kind of curious how it's closed to us, but not closed to everyone. And if you're going to open these parks, you have to have the infrastructure to support it. You have to fix 214. You have to have the police and the rangers to support the traffic and the number of people that are using the parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenneth. Up next, we have Mike Shea.
Hello, Councilperson Hare and Executive Pittman. I'm Mike Shea, the president of the South Arundel Citizens for Responsible Development, with a specific request. South County needs and deserves a community center, similar to the ones provided by our neighboring counties. Rick Anthony and I visited one of the community centers in Chesapeake Beach. It serves their citizens. It's a model for what we are missing. I suggest the county spend money to plan for a community center for South County, and I suggest the center of deal for the location. I appreciate it's a tough time, but if we don't plan for it now, when are we going to do it? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Up next, we have Scott Kudrowski.
Great. So just really quick, my name is Scott Kudrowski. I live at 4105 Shoreham Beach Road in Edgewater. Currently the president of West Shoreham Citizens Association. It's one of the communities just before the entrance to Mayo Beach Park. Just want to reiterate and echo what Brendan, the motor, had mentioned earlier about the Bill 9020 being double taxed. definitely was a surprise and shock to me to see that in our mailing there. I definitely want more investigation and understanding of how that's working, because that 30% hike equates to about $20 more. And all right, I'd understand, a few dollars. I understand over time things change. A few dollars increase, that might be more palatable, but an immediate $20 increase, that's a pretty massive increase, and residents of Mayo should be outraged on that increase and understand that more. It was the first time, as you mentioned, that was discussed, we had a chance to be part of that conversation that was going to happen. The other thing I wanted to reiterate as well, John Roderick, president of the Saunders Point, and Matt Minahan, neighbors of Mayo Peninsula. I mentioned as well is, with the parks and all being open over the summer here, huge traffic congestion, and it just made it worse. We had many issues with safety issues on the road here, and that's really the big discussion point we want to have with the county. I know I'm over my time here, but really just having that discussion with the county before they do any more development on the parks, so we can have it open for passive recreational use, and just have a balanced approach, and definitely having the county look at a budget for this pilot pass system so that we can make sure it's manageable. And that's the key, because it just gets out of hand. And
Scott, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap your thoughts up.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all I wanted to mention there. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, we have reduced the time to 1 minute, and when you go over your minute, you're going into someone else's time. So let's be considerate. Up next, we have Anna Boardman.
Good evening. Thank you, Councilman Pittman, Councilwoman Hare. I will submit my full testimony via email, but I am a board member of Arundel, Friends of Arundel County Animal Care and Control. We're just asking that you add a veterinarian to our shelter staff. If not for the volunteers nonprofit that we created, seriously injured or ill animals that arrive at Animal Care and Control would be euthanized immediately. The shelter does not have the staff expertise to care for the medical nor the budget to send them to outside veterinarians. Our donors pay to save their lives, but a public sector animal shelter should not have to rely on a small nonprofit to find some things as basic as veterinary care. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. Up next, we have Jackie Herman. Jackie, it looks like you're unmuted. You should be able to speak. Okay, we'll come back to Jackie. Up next, we have Robert Bogazak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, Robert.
Okay. Again, Robert R. Bogacek. I live at 6825 Crofton Colony Court, Crofton. Good evening. Thank you for this. As a homeowner in the Crofton Colony community, I want to detail the impact that the excessive stormwater from the Riding subdivision located on the opposite side of Overland Road has had on my property to date, and the hazards going forward. Behind my home is a natural wooded area, which includes a meandering stream bed, which is adjacent to my property, and in the past it has not presented any problems with regard to erosion. However, since the construction of the ridings by Toll Brothers, we're seeing a devastating change. Since the water's been piped across the street, it converted from a mild creek into a fast-flowing and destructive stream. I've included as part of my picture, or part of my presentation, 4 or 5 slides that are part of the file. And I want to close here by saying clearly the stormwater management plan under which the ridings was constructed has not worked as intended. If further water erosion is left unchecked, destructive and potentially injurious erosion is inevitable. There are trees here that are proximate to the walking park, and that needs to be noted. I have serious concerns that the stream bed on my property, with the steepest angle down to the stream bed, will become undermined to the point of collapse with dangerous consequences to nearby trees and potentially to the foundation of my home. Consequently, I'm requesting funds be appropriated without delay to stop the erosion, fully correct and restore Crofton Colony stream bed and banks as necessary to a safe, environmentally viable and sustainable condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. We have about 4 more hands raised, so we're going to close with those. We're going to try Jackie one more time. Then we're going to go to Bernard Nolan, Jaden Johnson, and Steve Waddy. So please prepare yourselves. Jackie, you have been unmuted. Please feel free to speak. Jackie, you appear to be having some audio issues. So again, you can submit your written testimony to countyexecutive@aacounty.org. We're going to move on to Bernard Nolan. Bernard, you now have the ability to unmute yourself. I know that Bernard was having some audio issues earlier as well. You appear to still be having audio issues. I'm sorry, Bernard. We're going to move on to Jaden Johnson.
Hello.
Hi, Jaden.
Hi. Right. Hi, my name is Jaden Johnson, and I've been a resident of Harwood on Sands Road for the last 22 years. I'm here to advocate for the development of a park in Lothian. I believe that a park will be beneficial to the Lothian youth and help their developmental needs, especially during these times. I believe there has been a disservice to the Lothian community for many years. Therefore, in closure, I would like to see some of the funds for the $3 million park renovation budget utilized in a lower income area such as Lothian. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaden. Up next, we have Stephen Waddy.
Hello, my name is Stephen Waddy with the Anne Arundel County NAACP, and I wanted to mention a couple items that we're concerned about. One is the status of funding for body cameras and car cameras for the police. We'd like to make sure that we maintain funding for body cameras, and also we would like to see funding for cameras for police cars put into the budget as well. Seeing that police reform is one of the major issues going on through the House legislature this session. We definitely need to have that in there. We also would like to see plans for each county department. When they come to you all for funding, we would like to know what their plans are for hiring more Black people. And we would also like to see the county executive put some money towards all of you put some money towards the housing trust that was proposed by the county executive prior to his coming into office, seeing as how affordable housing, especially in District 7, is limited. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And I'm going to break my own rule, and we actually have one hand left. So Michelle Danoff, you have 1 minute. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, good evening. Ma'am. I've spoken at numerous of these meetings, and my message is always the same: infrastructure first. We need infrastructure before more development. We have the same road with no shoulders and bad pavement, but we now have more houses being built every day and more amenities being added to parks. We need better infrastructure for park attendants. Parks has done a great job advertising the parks, and the app that shows when it's open and closed is extremely helpful. But last year, they got totally unprepared with the amount of people who showed up. We really need a pass system that makes it fair for people who have driven long distances to be able to get in and not get to the park and be frustrated because it's closed. We had over 200 cars pass down Honeysuckle Road in 1 hour to get to Mayo Beach Park, only to be turned around. These cars then drove around the communities hoping for the park to open. This is a very dangerous situation, and we need to be much more fair to the people attending and the communities that surround it. I have many more points to put in here. We need more rangers. Basically, if you're going to offer more amenities, you need the proper infrastructure to handle it. Necessities before niceties. I've said it over and over every year, and it's the same message. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you to everyone who participated tonight. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Councilwoman Jessica Hare.
Thank you. And for those of you who shared your evening with us and spent the whole night here, I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you offering all of your thoughts. As usual, I've taken a lot of notes. These budget town halls are so helpful for me. I can tell you it really helps inform the beginning of my questions for the budget hearings that we go through in May after the county executive puts forth his proposed budget. Just from tonight, on the revenue side of things, I will have questions for the budget office on the fund balance, on vacancies in individual departments, on the hiring freeze, on the projected revenues, on the CARES Act money, the list goes on. Then on the issues we heard tonight, and I won't name them all, but I mean, stormwater management came through loud and clear. Animal care and control, infrastructure, ditches clean out, parks. And speaking of parks, for the couple of women who testified on the Lothian Park, 2 years ago, we heard about the Deal Park for the first time at one of the budget town hall, and it made its way into the budget. So we really are listening, and we really are working to make the budget reflective of what the community wants. So I thank you all for that. I'm excited now to look into that Lothian Park. Mental health, counselors for school, library funding. And for the woman who testified on the Crofton Library, I just want to give a shout out, a big thank you to the Crofton Library. A number of times during COVID, I had constituents reach out with library questions in particular, and I was very fortunate to deal directly with the Crofton Library, and they were so great. So a big thank you to the Crofton Library. Transportation issues, protection, preservation, water access, Route 214. I mean, the list goes on, and we are certainly taking all of this into account. So thank you again. For those of you who did not get a chance to put your comments out, or you have more, or you'd like to share photos, I know several people mentioned photos from stormwater management and things like that. In addition to sending your testimony to the county executive, by all means, please feel free to send it to me. My email is jessica.hare, H-A-I-R-E, @aacounty.org. Please, I look forward to seeing all of your thoughts. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.
Well, thank you, Councilwoman Hare, and I guess I will wrap it up. I also took about 4 pages of notes, and I'm trying to figure out which items to even touch on, and I don't want to go on forever, but I do want to mention a few things. A lot of you were here talking about, from Crofton Commons, talking about the ridings across the road, and I got to say, the development of that property is one of the reasons I ran for this office. I was so disappointed. I knew that farm well, and the fact that they've taken that beautiful piece of land and don't even have a stormwater system that works. There's plenty of ground there. You would think they would be able to figure out a system that works. We did pass a bill this year, which was something that was raised during the campaign, and then we pushed it through to require that these developers have bonds, so that if their stormwater systems don't work and they do damage to the neighbors, that they then have to pay damages. Unfortunately, this one got in before that bill passed. The question about whether we can sue for damages is, I mean, that's what you're asking for. Either do that or use our stormwater funds to fix the problem. I guarantee we'll look at the problem. I don't think the Office of Law believes that suing at this point is going to be successful. So, but we have to look at that. But I feel your pain. Animal care and control. Y'all were here every meeting last year, and you've been at every one this year, every budget town hall. My ears perked up when you talked about the law that requires to have veterinary care at animal shelters, and the fact that they have 4 in Baltimore County. We can't let Johnny O up there in Baltimore County do better than us. So we're going to be looking at that, as well as cat cages. We did the dog cages last year. So we'll look at all of this stuff. And I just want to thank all the volunteers there, the Friends of the Animal Care and Control, for your hard work. It's true that it was 2 years ago that you came to us and proposed that the land that was to be developed next to the Deal Library become Deal Park. And I loved that idea. And we managed to acquire the land, and the community is now designing the park, and I can't wait for the ribbon cutting. I know Councilwoman Hare agrees on that. And, give them an inch and they take, they want a mile, right, Councilwoman? Now it's Lothian. So let's look at Lothian and see what the needs are. I mean, that's the way these things work. In fact, Rec and Parks is doing what their park plan, land preservation, recreation, and park plan, and get involved in that process, because that's how they make decisions about future park and rec facilities. So, Julia Howe from the South County Chamber, on her own, within 2 minutes, probably raised more issues than anybody. I've got down here the Deal Park, the trimming for the combines, which is absolutely important. I know for the farmers, swim area at Beverly Triton. Believe me, they are going to break ground this year. The beach restoration work has already started. Light on fields, school funding, and small business support. Thank you for all of those. We heard from the Annapolis Symphony, and we heard from them last year. And I got to say, in my effort the first year to try to cut some fat out of the budget, I did cut the funding for Annapolis Symphony, our support for the Quiet Waters concert. And the more I found out about that concert, and I haven't been yet, I realized that was a mistake. So while the concert couldn't take place this year, I'm sure it will next year, and hope it will. And we'll be there to support you. Libraries, we always love the fact that they testify, and they're like community centers in our community and provide all kinds of services. Rec and Parks funding, we heard a lot about, and I'm glad, because it's really probably as much as anything, especially during this pandemic, really saved some of us in terms of mental health, being able to get out into the parks. We had about a 30% increase in park attendance this year. Glad to hear from our friends at the Fraternal Order of Police, Mike, and then our fire department, Brian. We're with you. We're going to support you. We're never gonna let you down. It's top priority for me. The proposal to tax farmers more. I agree with the farmer that spoke up. Really, when you look at rural areas, the taxes tend to be lower in rural counties because they don't need as much services. So it's actually a good deal financially to have farms in the county. It's a lot cheaper to have farmers farming, have it be commercially viable, than for the county to acquire land for open space. So I am not supportive of raising taxes on the farmers, but I can say that this proposal by Purdue to close down their grain elevator is a huge potential blow to local farmers. About 30% of our farmed land is in grain. And so I got on the phone, I talked to the ag secretary, and I talked to the CEO at Purdue. He apologized for the way he handled this, and the ag secretary's on top of it. I'm expecting a call by next week with report on some buyers. And if we don't have buyers, I think we need to get with the Southern Maryland Ag Development Corporation and create a co-op to keep that going, because if we lose the elevator, it's really hard for our smaller farmers in particular who don't have silos. And I know all of us in this district want to keep farms at farms. Marcia Perry, we hear you on the forestry board. I'm not sure how that slipped out. It's not a whole lot of money, but we will support the forestry board as we have in the past. I promise you. And I know you'll be at my house if I don't deliver on that. Finally, I want to thank those of you who spoke up on affordable housing, the opportunity gap, some of the work that we're doing for the residents of our county who've been hardest by this pandemic. Thank you for supporting them and standing up for them. And thank you all just for speaking up and participating. This isn't your last opportunity. The budget, we'll be hearing from all the departments, putting together a budget, sending it to the council, and you will have more opportunity for hearings and input when the council gets a hold of it and they do their job. So thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.